Hello, my name's Ollie from talkinginpictures.co.uk, and today I'm going to be thinking about and answering the question, when will my autistic child speak, or when will my child speak? Now, I've been asked this question many times by parents who are obviously concerned that their children are, as they say, non-verbal, or they're currently not talking. And the question's also wrapped around questions such as, when will my child read, or when will my child be able to write? Now, for me, a lot of these questions are all together. They can be all part of basically what is communication. And there's no guarantees that your child will instantly be able to speak, but there are some really fantastic methods that I have learnt through my years and experience teaching and working with children with autism and communication difficulties. And some of these methods can be really useful for your child. So if you don't know about them, watch this video. Now, the whole thing with learning is this is the same with children, with adults, with ourselves. It's all about motivation. So much of the key to all of these methods is around motivation. Now, when I first started teaching and people would come and ask me, when will my child be able to talk? When will my child be able to write? When will my child be able to do this? My answers were always a bit like, well, there's no guarantees, like I just said, but we'll take some small steps and we're all working as well as we could, which is basically very vague. And this is when I started out as a special needs teacher, because I hadn't been trained in many of these methods that I'm just going to talk about briefly. And you can Google and find other videos, and I will hopefully do more videos on some of these methods, but in particular, PECS, which is the Picture Exchange Communication System, Makaton, and Intensive Interaction are three fantastic methods that I use, and that hopefully in whatever school setting you are in, your child will experience. Just to be clear, just to explain Makaton. Makaton is basically a very simple form of sign language, and it uses A, B, C, D, kind of finger spelling letters, and things like for school, because it's so boring, and milk, like I'm milking a cow. So Makaton is a really nice kind of simplified version of sign language, and it's M-A-K-A-T-O-N. They're a charity. If you Google M-A-K-A-T-O-N, Makaton, you'll find more information about that. PECS is Picture Exchange Communication System. It's where you have pictures for children who aren't able to vocalize. You have pictures or symbols which you can take and you can give to your communication partner to express whatever you need to, as long as they've developed their vocabulary, and you can build the pictures up into short sentences. The other method of working with different children is intensive interaction. And intensive interaction is really good for working with children who are really at the early stages of communication. And sometimes they may seem in their own world completely, and it can be very difficult to communicate with them or to get them to relate to you. And again, you can Google intensive interaction, but very basically, to start with, you're literally copying. So if a child is here and they're just in their own little world, but they're rocking, you can go up to them and sort of stand a bit near to them, as long as they're comfortable, and you rock with them. Or if they're doing a bit of this, they just sit looking at the sunlight, you do it with them as well. And a lot of the time, again, like with all of these methods, they don't always, you can't always guarantee that they'll work, but that child, when they notice that you're doing it, a lot of the time, and it's really quite lovely, they'll notice that you're doing that. And they change their behaviour, and they'll do something else like that. Doesn't become a song and dance routine, but sometimes it can. And you quite often form a lovely little bond with your student, with your child, literally just by copying them. And it's a really, really lovely way of beginning that communication. And this is kind of before the Macathon, before the picture exchange. This is just, that developing that human connection. So yeah, intensive interaction is really great, and I would recommend doing it even just with your friend. It's actually quite interesting what might come out of it. What are you doing? Because basically you're observing them, you're paying attention, and so much of all of these strategies is about paying attention, seeing what is bringing joy or a feeling of comfort to your student, to your child, and working on ways of giving them more of that, basically. However, even when I was trained in these methods, so initially I'd be giving parents kind of vague answers because I wasn't trained in these areas. But then when I was more confident in some of these methods, like PECS and Macathon and intensive interaction, I still couldn't guarantee to parents how, through them working with me and being in a classroom essentially, how quickly or how effectively I could introduce some of these methods to their child. And this is because I was conflicted through the need to deliver the national curriculum. Now, I don't want to spend this video just moaning and going on about schools, but there is, in my opinion, a fundamental problem with schools that are required to deliver the curriculum, but they haven't actually taught the children the communication skills in order to actually access the curriculum. And you get this hodgepodge where you're trying to kind of smash the ideas of the curriculum together with these communication techniques. And in my view, that is the wrong way round. So there's two basic problems that I see. One is not enough training and understanding of methods such as PECS, such as Macathon, such as intensive interaction. And if you are a parent of a child or you're a teacher, I would recommend that you speak to your management, or if you're a parent, speak to the school and really demand more intensive interaction, more PECS, more Macathon training. Go there and ask. You may have to be a bit of a pain, but I guarantee these methods are better. Well, they need to be used basically. They're better than they're not being taught, because if your child's going to a special needs school and isn't able to communicate properly, then the delivery of the curriculum should be secondary. This is my opinion again, and get a little bit emotional about this because, like I say, these methods can be fantastic, and I try to promote them as much as I can. And as part of Talking in Pictures, .co.uk, I've created these toy boxes which incorporate some of these elements in a very motivational way. Now, with all of this learning and specifically the training, you need to go at all of it with an open-minded attitude. You've got to be realistic, so a lot of this stuff has to be delivered in very small steps, but if you've got a very positive attitude towards it, a lot of the time you'll be amazed at how much progress you can make. Now, if your child can't speak at all, you need to think about what questions do we need to be asking as to why aren't they speaking, or if they're not speaking, is there some other way that they are communicating? So we need to look at what they're already doing and then work out the best or next steps of how to progress. And there isn't a one-size-fits-all model for this. And again, so this is why you need to be having conversations with your school to really understand the needs of your individual child. There's no one set system, and sometimes you have to mix and match the system. It depends on the learning style of your child. And what I have found is that when we talk about learning styles, a lot of the time we say the VAK, and the V stands for visual. Obviously we can see things. Audio, you're listening to this now, but kinesthetic. And I have found in my experience that so many of our children are super kinesthetic. And unfortunately, the way schools are set up, they're very set up to visual and auditory, so visual learning, chalk and talk like I'm doing now, but we don't have as much access to the kinesthetic, the doing things activities. So I will always try and, again, speak to your schools. What are my kids actually doing? It's, if they're just watching a screen or listening to someone, they're not really learning. They need to be doing practical things. And if we think about what's the purpose of school, what are we doing? We need to learn how to do things to survive and to thrive in the real world. It's very good to know things academically and understand bits and bobs around the curriculum, but if we can't physically do the things that we need to do to survive and thrive, in my view, we are missing a trick. So, a quick takeaway that I want you to bear in mind is ABC and ABC charts. Now, the ABC system can be at the very core of how you work with your child, and ABC stands for antecedent, behaviour, and consequence. The antecedents is what's happening before a particular behaviour happens, even if it's something bad or something good or something you want to happen. The B is for the behaviour, the thing that's happening, either it's bad behaviour or it's good behaviour, so for example talking, and then the consequence. The C is for the consequence. So if your child is talking or they're using a picture or they're using Makaton, that is the behaviour we want, and we want to give them a good consequence so that they can keep doing it. So always remember ABC, antecedent, what's happening before behaviour, B, behaviour, and C, the consequence. But what I found with this method, which again we use in schools and it's part of the PECS method, we need to always remember the M. I've just made that up, but the M for motivation. We need to know why a child is motivated to do something. So observation is really, really important. And in many ways, you have to be a little bit of a detective to do this. So it's all about observing, thinking, seeing what's motivating your child, and think about it in your own terms. So for example, if you yourself are hungry, and think about you being hungry, think about your child, your student being hungry. What's the ABC of hunger? Well, the antecedent is I'm feeling hungry. I've got the hunger pains. The behaviour is you go and get some food, and the consequence is you feel good. You're full. It's as simple as that. But you can use this ABC model kind of for anything. If you think about us again as adults, if you're working, you have to work for a reason, and the work is you literally go to work. That's your behaviour. The antecedent is you need money to do things. Antecedent. Your behaviour is you go to work, and the consequence is hey, you've got some money and you can use your money to live and hopefully have a fulfilling life. So that behaviour we want to reinforce for our children, like we are reinforced with money. That's our motivator. So we always have to think about what's our motivation for our child. And so what motivates the behaviour, what reinforces their behaviour. And some examples of things that motivate or reinforce behaviour can be time. Sometimes children, a lot of time, especially our autistic children, they just want time to themselves. So if you want them to do something specific, maybe giving them the time afterwards to just enjoy their world is a motivator. Food and drink. Food and drink is massively motivation. There's freedom. Again, that's freedom to be in a space, the same as time. A lot of the time, to be honest, and this is why I get wound up about school, some of the children just want to escape. They don't want to be doing the work that you're setting them in school. If your child is constantly trying to escape, you need to go, this is for teachers especially, you need to go, well, if my child's constantly trying to escape, they clearly don't want to be doing this work. I need to realign what I'm doing so that they actually want to do it. And a big motivator is joy. We all want to be happy. Joy. Can you bring joy into the classroom, into what you're doing? What makes them happy? Boost up the joy levels if you can. Because if you think about what our prime motivations are, we want to, in our own lives, so it's true of of everybody. We want to increase pleasure, decrease pain. So when you're trying to teach something, think about, from their point of view, is this activity going to increase their pleasure, decrease their pain? And if it's not, you're doing something wrong. And the ABC approach can help you to do that. So, I've got to get my breath back quickly. Now, I've worked with many autistic children and developed these ideas and been on many courses and worked with loads of children, and using this kind of these principles around, you know, the pleasure and the pain principle. What is going to actually attract children towards something, and what's going to detract? And let's go. Okay, I've seen, for example, children love magnets. So with my toy boxes, I've got one of them that's completely made up of magnets, or I've got a toy box with multiple magnets, and then other things. And essentially, magnets or wind-up toys or bubbles, some of these sensory things. The toy box is full of these items, and then they are matched with communication cards. So this is a way of introducing children to a communication system using pictures, which works in a very similar way to the PECS method. And the whole point of the toy box is that it's, like I said earlier, around the motivation. It's about increasing the level of joy for the child. If the child really likes the magnets or a wind-up toy, they will reach for the toy. And at that point, we can do a little bit of learning. That's where we get our behavior in. We teach them to use the correct card to give it to us and therefore communicate. That's the communicative behavior. And then as the C, the consequence, they get the toy and they get to experience playing with the toy. So they're feeling happy, so you've increased their happiness, but you've also done your teaching element of giving them the ability to communicate. And if you can build that up, I mean, that's just one method. But you know, getting into Makaton, if you can start teaching your child how to communicate through Makaton, then they have access to more things. Once they're able to communicate, then have loads and loads of fun exploring all of the elements of the wider curriculum. But you've got to ensure that the communication comes first. And that's why I'm on a mission to hopefully spread that idea as much as I can through these videos, through the toy boxes. So like I said, go to talkinginpictures.co.uk if you want to find out more about the toy boxes, or if you'd like me to go into more depth on any of the subjects I've covered here, please drop a comment below, and obviously subscribe and like, just to make me feel a bit more joy in the world. I hope you've enjoyed this video, and I will see you next time.